I graduated from Stuart Home School in 2014 and then did a Bachelor of Midwifery over 4 years. It is a 3-year degree, but I went part-time, did it over 4 years, graduated at the end of last year, and am now a midwife employed by the Mater Hospital.
My name's Christy. I'm a midwife working at the Royal Women's Hospital in Brisbane. I have been working there for nearly 2 years now, and I work in all areas throughout the maternity section.
Hello, my name's Rachel and I studied Bachelor of Nursing. I graduated Sandgate High School in 2015 and went straight into my degree. I am now a primary health nurse and an occupational nurse at Family Doctors Plus, a GP practice.
Hi, my name's Rebecca Groves. I'm not going to tell you what year I graduated high school because I was a mature age student studying at uni. So I studied the Bachelor of Nursing and I work currently in the intensive care unit at Logan Hospital for Queensland Health.
Hi, I'm Ruan Sweeney. I graduated from Iona College in 2017. I'm currently studying Bachelor of Nursing and Bachelor of Paramedicine, and I'm in my second year. And I'm also working as an assistant in nursing at Redlands Residential Care.
Excellent. All right, well, I might start, I guess, Ali, by asking you, what does a typical day look like for you?
So a typical day as a midwife, it's a tricky question. At the moment I'm rotational, so I've been in birth suite in the last month and I will be there for another 2 months. It consists of shift work, whether or not they're 8-hour or 12-hour shifts. So in birth suite, obviously, we get people coming in labour, early labour, or people with some health problems who are pregnant who need some extra care, one-on-one care. And it's just guiding them through, empowering them through their birth so that we can have a very happy birth and baby at the end. Otherwise, I've been dealing with antenatal clinic, which was a great 8:30 to 5 p.m. job. So I got a good regular sleep pattern. Didn't have to rely on my energy drinks. And before that, it was postnatal care as well. So it's just, depending on the area that it is, it's just looking after the woman in your care, whatever stage of pregnancy, labour or postpartum care that they're at, and educating them, advocating for them so that they can have the birth and pregnancy that they kind of, dreamed of in a very healthy way, I suppose.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing, Ali. I might also ask in the room, if you do have any questions at all, feel free to pop your hand up at any stage. My colleague's up the back there, so she'll have the microphone, so you can ask any of our panel members. We'll also be receiving questions online, which I will read out to you so you're aware of the questions. But I might ask our next question to you, Rebecca. Can you tell me, how does your job differ from what you expected?
Oh my gosh, this probably wasn't the best question for me. I didn't expect anything from ICU. I actually didn't have any ICU placements. So going into it, I think it's exactly what I expected. It's intense, it's critical care, it's one-on-one patient, just because of the type of patient load that we have, so it's one-on-one. We're doing constant, just keeping an eye on them, the blood pressures, time, it's, just watching everything. So I think it's exactly what I thought, actually.
Excellent. And Ruan, did you want to, elaborate on some of the placement opportunities that you've had the chance to experience at ACU, and I guess what you're looking forward to in your 3rd and 4th year of your degree?
Oh, okay. Well, so far I've had 1 nursing and 1 paramedicine placement. My nursing placement was in aged care at Redlands Hospital in the residential sector, which is where I work now. And that was a 3-week placement where I worked with registered nurses, enrolled nurses, and assistant nurses to sort of establish those core skills of vital signs and patient communication. And then I moved on to my paramedicine placement, which was 4 days, 4 12-hour shifts, where I was down at Narang, and we covered our going out with QAS and responding to calls and completing all of those core skills that I'd learned in university. However, coming up in 3rd and 4th year, I think I have a lot more placements to go to, balancing out nursing and paramedicine in more specific areas of nursing. I believe soon I have mental health placement, which I'm excited for, and it's definitely going to be interesting. But there's lots of opportunities for placements in pretty much all degrees.
Wonderful, thank you. Christy, for you, how has your job perhaps differed to what you expected? And I guess what's been the most surprising part?
So for me, I guess the most surprising part is not really related to my education through ACU. It's just more the state of maternity care. So more from a political point of view. Unfortunately, midwives don't work in ratios like nursing staff do throughout Queensland. So sometimes I could have a shift where I might be looking after 6 women who are quite ill, as well as their 6 babies as well. So that's a pretty decent workload. So I guess that's probably the most surprising thing, is that it's something that we, value as a health profession, but we don't seem to have the support there, for the team that are on the ground. So, yeah.
Great. And we've just had first question come through online, and then we'll get to you in the audience. Astara Thompson has asked, as a midwife, what are the skills that you learn that are similar to nursing? So I guess Ali or Christy, did you want to elaborate on that?
Well, I guess in a way, neither Ali or I, we're direct entry midwives. So what that basically means is we don't have nursing experience. So, I mean, we do, basic sets of obs, and in terms of skills, actually, I don't really know. We still do infusions and have drips. As a midwife, I go to theatre. We certainly have, basic life support skills, those types of things. If a mum becomes critically ill or needs, cardiac compressions or anything like that. So you do learn those things. But we have less experience with your respiratory issues and more like your critical care, like your ICU type care, in my experience.
I get this question quite a lot from all the nursing and midwives, so the people who've done both. It's just how do you think you can do just midwifery? But I always talk to them, we learn about the comorbidities of health, diabetes, hypertension, all these different diseases. We just learn about it in the instance of pregnant women. So it's not like we don't know how to look after you. And we always obviously have our policies and procedures that we follow, but we only learn about it in terms of a pregnant woman with that disease. So, we're not just curing average people on the street. We're looking after people of a certain health standard to what we expect. So we learn about it in those kind of senses, I suppose. So similar, but very, very different as well.
Great, thank you. And so I think we've got our first question from the audience.
I was just wondering, was it hard finding a job as a midwife after university?
I'm very glad that you actually asked that question. For me, I would say no, it actually wasn't difficult. I would say maybe one of the lucky ones, but I had midwives who were in my cohort who actually, it was a good 12 months before they even actually started to work in a clinical setting. So I would say that the climate in southeast Queensland at the moment for a job as a post-grad midwife is not ideal. Yeah.
I have a similar thing, I put in for the MARTA, and I was very, very lucky to get that job because there was over 1,000 applications for both nursing and midwifery, and they were only offering 10 midwifery spots. So it was very, very hectic. I suppose what you've got to do during the uni time is do something to stand out. Do an overseas placement if you can, or I ran the Macaulay Midwifery Society while I was here on campus. So it's just doing little things, but it is unfortunate that there are still people in my cohort who haven't found a job yet, who are still, they've got their jobs at McDonald's, and I'm like, do what you love, So you can always, obviously, I have friends who've applied to places in Tasmania, and there's lots of midwifery jobs, I feel, past the grad year, but everyone wants you to have that grad year experience. And then there's a page on Facebook called Midwifery Contracts Australia, and there's all these places all over Australia always being like, we have a job here, can you do 3 months, 12 months? So it's just a shame that everyone needs that experience, but obviously, it's best to have that experience as well. Just getting that grad year, I suppose, is a difficult task, and you've just got to try to separate yourself from the crowd. It's tough though, but it's doable.
Excellent. Rachel. What advice would you give to someone who is perhaps considering a career in nursing?
My biggest piece of advice is keep your mind open. Nursing has so many different avenues. A lot of people sort of go into nursing and they go, right, I'm going to be a paediatric nurse, or I'm going to be an ICU nurse, and they have their blinkers on and they just go for it. My biggest thing is keep your mind open. For myself personally, I was set right from first year, first day, I'm going to be a paediatric nurse. That's what I want to do. I went through the graduate process and I was put on a waiting list for the Prince Charles. And during that time, I was offered a job at a GP clinic. And I discovered that I have absolutely fallen in love with doing primary health. I still get to go into work. I still see kids. I do vaccinations regularly. I do development checks. I see the little bubs after these ladies pass them on and help them after their hospital visit. And the biggest thing is that don't put your blinkers on. Do your research. Have a look around. See what other avenues they are, because ultimately there is an entire world waiting for you in nursing. Don't just set your mind on one thing.
And can I ask, in terms of nursing particularly, did you have the opportunity during your placements at university to experience some of those different areas to help make your mind up?
Yeah, so I was actually incredibly fortunate with my level of experience during my placements. So I was part of the Prince Charles program, which is a program offered to nursing students where they go through the Prince Charles and they have all of their placements there. So I was given the opportunity to do rehabilitation care, aged care, community mental health, secure mental health, paediatric ward, paediatric emergency, thoracic help, cardiac ward, surgical ward, which was general and gastroenterology, and I also was able to do a peri-op placement. So I was provided with a very, very wide range of both acute and subacute experiences that allowed me to really experience what I wanted to and decide what suited me best and where my interest lay.
Excellent. Ruwan, let's bring you into the conversation. Can you elaborate on what a typical week would look like for you in terms of studying at the moment?
Okay. Well, at the moment I come to university 3 days a week, and those 3 days a week would range from maybe 8 hours to maybe even 10 hours each day, because my classes can be spread out or cramped together quite close. But in between those times I'll study or work on assignments. But most of my work is 50% practical, 50% theory. And when I'm not at university, I'm either at work here at the university or over at Redlands Residential. But I do a fair bit of study outside of my classes, and that study can scrape up a fair bit of time. And I'm pretty much doing something that's either university related or work related every day of the week.
Excellent. And so we've had another question come through online from Oliver. So what would the course structure be like during the first 1 to 2 years? How many days, hours on campus, and how many days in the hospital, if any? So I guess you've kind of given us a bit of a perspective from a nursing and paramed student. But perhaps did you want to share in terms of your experience either as nursing students or midwifery students what your kind of typical week look like, I guess, particularly in your first 1 or 2 years?
So my first 1 to 2 years, I was working at the time as well. So I was provided with a very flexible uni opportunities by ACU. So during my first semester, first year, I came to uni for 2.5 days a week. And one of those days I woke up at 10, I came in and stayed till 8 p.m. One of those days I was here from 8 a.m. till 2 p.m. Like, it was really great. Leading into my second year, I actually found that I was working full-time and studying full-time. So I used to do classes 4 days a week between 4 till 8 p.m. And I just used to come in just during those evening hours. And I found that really, really worked for my current home and work situation. So it was really valuable to be able to have that flexibility for me.
So when I first started studying, I had 3 young children. So I had 15-month-old twins and a 3-year-old as well. So the great thing about studying at ACU is that they do have flexible options. So I managed to be able to, I studied part-time, but managed to be able to actually do all of my subjects in one day. For mid, unless it's changed, I'm not sure if it has, but we did a block placement which went for about a month at the end of the second semester. So other than that, it was actually really quite easy for me to fit it around my work and my children, as well as placement as well.
For me, my first semester, first year was full-time, so I was doing 4 subjects. I was here 4 days a week. Had my Fridays off, which was nice. And yeah, so that's what first semester looked like for me. I actually failed a subject, so it was a prerequisite for 2 subjects next semester, so I had to wait a whole another year to redo it. So I dropped back to part-time and I did 2 subjects next semester, and then restarted again the next year. So that's why I did it over the 4 years. So then I did 3 subjects from then on, which actually worked really well for me. And then it kind of got to a point where I was having 2 to 3 days at university. At the end of first year, second semester, we'd do a block placement, as Christy said, and then from then on it was a model placement, so 2 shifts a week for 10 weeks during the semester until your very last semester, where it's 4 shifts a week. But last year was super, super easy in the fact that it was like an accelerated type thing. So first semester of my last year, I was here for 2 weeks straight every day. And that was really good. And then we had the whole rest of the semester free until our OSCE at the end, which is a practical exam, and our exams again at the end. And then semester 2, I was only here for 2 days in the whole semester, and we did a whole day of labs and a whole day of in like tutoring. Tutorials, that's it. So yeah, it goes very differently and it changes throughout your time, I suppose, depending on how many hours of shifts and things you take.
Wonderful. So we had another question come through from online from Hannah. So Rebecca, I might ask you this question, but how did you balance your life at university with your everyday life, so your other commitments? How did you find that? And yeah, I guess what worked for you?
I think I found ACU, again, very flexible, like the girls are saying. So in my second year of nursing, I actually had a netball injury where I ruptured my ACL. So I had some meetings with some of our lecturers, and I was able to discuss with them about perhaps postponing my practical placements to later on in the year while I still completed that class. So in regards to balancing, I'd like to say that, yeah, it is definitely something that the ACU works with you with. So there is even a few times where you may not actually get the tutorial classes or the practical classes that you want. You can still go and have those discussions. It's a very friendly environment. You can still have that personal interaction with your lecturer or your tutorial, and they will sit down and do the best possible they can so that you're not missing out on those life opportunities and things like that that you still want to have.
Excellent. And so we've got a question that's come through from Oliver, and he's asked, what does block placement mean, and what would this look like for a paramedic?
I'm not entirely sure, actually. I know for paramedicine placements, they can extend for larger periods of time than just 4 days. I know at nearing the end of the degree, it can reach up to 3 weeks of placement, and I believe that's the longest it can get. I'm not sure what it means by block placement, but yeah, you're pretty much just working as a paramedic for 3 weeks along with your mentors, and I think that's the longest it can get.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely.
So block placement for us as midwives, it was for at least 4 weeks, and it was essentially full time, and we were working shift work as well. So it was all shifts, earlies, lates, and night shifts as well. So it's a great way to give you like a bit of a taste of whether or not shift work's not easy. So it's good to kind of get it out of the way straight up, because there's lots of people who actually don't tolerate it very well. So it wouldn't be great to do your entire degree and then finally get to the end of it and realise that shift work is not for you. So.
Excellent. Everyone, I believe this is a question for you from Isabel. So what made you want to study both paramedicine and nursing as opposed to one or the other?
Well, when I was in high school, I was mainly focusing on studying nursing, but I think my parents sort of convinced me to go into the dual degree, because they said it'd be good to have 2 degrees under my belt rather than 1. But looking at it now, I'm definitely glad that I did, for going into paramedicine or nursing, due to the limited job opportunities in paramedicine at the moment. Nursing definitely helps with that, but I think my parents had a large role in me deciding on what I wanted to do.
Excellent. And I just want to throw it open to the audience. Did anyone have any questions for any of our panel members? Or happy to continue? Excellent. Okay, feel free to pop your hand up at any stage if you do. I guess I'd like to ask you guys what the biggest myth or misconception has been about your role in the industry, or something that you often hear from people.
So I am a GP nurse, and the most common thing is that GP nurse is easy. Everyone goes, oh, be a nice CU nurse, that's where the real business is at. As a GP nurse, you must just plod around, play with babies and have a wonderful time. And for me, no, I don't know what I'm walking into every day. I could be walking into and doing, for instance, a pre-employment medical where I have a fit, healthy 21-year-old, boom, 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 he's nice and healthy, off you go. Or I get people coming in who thought that they felt a bit unwell and no, they're actually having a stroke. So it's certainly not an easy job, and that's one of the biggest myths that even other people in the health industry don't fully understand.
Thanks.
I think probably Ali would agree with this, that it's all about cuddling babies, and you get to the end of the day and it's kind of not really about the babies. In fact, for us midwives, it's about the mums, and that's something that comes through quite strongly, especially at ACU as well. So while you do get to cuddle the occasional baby, it is definitely more about actually being there to help support a mum and like Ali said before, to advocate for them and their choices with the type of birth and postpartum care that they want.
Yeah, totally agree. Also, like, I suppose I didn't even quite understand what a midwife was when I walked into the role when I decided I wanted to do it. 17, fresh out of high school. My mum even didn't know. She went private care throughout all her labours and births, and she thought that I was just going to be like a nurse of birth. I remember when I first came home to her at the end of my first delivery, and I said, "Mum, I caught my first baby today," and she went, "You do what now?" So even amongst birthing mothers who have had babies, they don't even quite understand all that we do, I suppose.
Excellent. All right, we've had another question come through online from Analia. Apologies if I say anyone's name wrong. I guess Rebecca and Rachel, this is a question for you both. How challenging or rewarding is the Bachelor of Nursing?
It's definitely a challenging degree. I was fresh out of high school when I went into it, and not having life experience, that was actually a really big challenge, because people would say to me, "Oh, like, you know what it looks like when someone has a heart attack," and I'm like, "No, hard no to that one, not aware of that at all." And even sort of thing of, okay, you know how a hospital works. I was 17, I'd been in a hospital maybe once in my life, not really. And that was challenging, really getting my head around things that were much bigger concepts than I'd ever really thought. I thought biology was great, and that's what I was going to learn a bit more of and learn how to fix people. And it was very, very different to that. But it is so rewarding. Like, there is nothing like seeing someone walk home after coming into a hospital unwell. It was an amazing experience. You learnt so much and you got to see so much. And just knowing that you're doing something that's helping the community is just, it fills your heart every single day.
Maybe from a mature age student perspective, it was challenging to learn how to have to write assignments again, APA referencing, things like that. So I basically had to go back to school and learn how to school again. So I found that very challenging. However, once you do get out there and you finally get those prac placements and you're like, this is what it's for, this is what I've learnt. And the rewarding thing about my job currently, I'd probably say my patients, unfortunately 90% probably can't talk. They're all intubated, ventilated, all that kind of thing. So the most rewarding thing about my job is probably the family aspect. We have a lot of involvement with the family. So we had a lady that was in there and we didn't know if she would survive. She did. But like the family would come in and you'd be like, look, just step out for 5 minutes. We're just going to bath her. We're going to give her those hygiene and those cares that some people probably don't know that happen behind the scenes. And they are just so grateful. And, you have people there and you're just like, if this was my family, if this was my mum, my dad, my sister, I would be so grateful as well. And that's how you treat your patients.
Yeah, excellent. And I think you make a really valid point there about kind of going back to school or having to relearn those skills. But one of the great services that all universities, but particularly ACU offer, there are those support services there available to you. Often you have to seek them out of your own accord. But there are things like academic skills workshops and career services. So you can go and make an appointment and have a chat to those guys. They can go through your assignments with you, particularly as a first year student when you're still kind of getting your head around all of that stuff. I'd really encourage you to kind of make use of those services that are available to you.
I use those guys to help me write my resume.
Excellent. Good little plug for them. So we have another question that's come through online from Blair. What were some of the challenges the midwives experienced during their first placements?
During first placement was probably more from like a personal point of view, like trying to actually juggle my family and like my husband's work commitments and just making sure that my children were cared for. And I guess having had children myself, there was a little bit of a challenge in so much as like being able to leave my misconceptions and my personal opinions of childbirth and postnatal period, like at the door. So that was probably pretty challenging, actually. Yeah.
My first placement was to do with a lot of, we were only in the antenatal clinic and the postnatal clinic. So I think, I don't know, I really loved it. I wanted to ask if I could do extra shifts because I never wanted to leave. Probably the hardest challenge for me was, you've got a set number of patients and they all need different things, and you just need to organise your care and your time so that you can give each person the right amount of care. And I'd probably be in one room too long being like, oh, let me do this for you, this. I don't know. I don't know if there was too many challenges first time round, but it gets harder. More challenging.
And I guess this is a question for all of you on the panel that's come through online from Isabella. Did you all get the Year 12 high school score you needed, or did you come to university via a pathway or another avenue?
I did get the OP that I needed to come to ACU. I originally wanted to do the dual at UQ, but the year that I graduated went from an OP7 to an OP2. So, yeah, there you go. I was like, oh, I didn't get an OP2. So I was like, midwifery is where my heart lies. Off we go to ACU. It was one of my options that I put down, luckily. So here we are now. And I loved every minute, and I don't regret not doing nursing, just for my own personal health. Well, hats off to the nurses of the world, but midwifery is where my heart lies.
So I actually didn't graduate high school. I started a hairdressing apprenticeship when I was 16, so finished grade 10. Had my own salon and worked as a hairdresser for about a long time. I won't say how many years, and just had my children and decided that it just wasn't enough. So because I technically didn't graduate high school, I actually had to could do a bridging course. I had to prove that I could do the equivalent to grade 12 English. So I did that through an exam that I think QTAC run. So there's a few options that I did there. And then basically I had to write an assignment to say why I would be a good university student and how I would work my life around it. So it actually probably took about 6 months worth of preparation for my application to be submitted. So, and I basically, for me, ACU was convenient. I didn't have to pay for parking or anything like that. So that was actually one of the good things. But in the long run, it actually was a wonderful choice.
So I had a very similar story. I was aiming to do the dual of nursing midwifery. Unfortunately, I just didn't quite get there. And whilst I did get the OP to come to ACU, I actually even gave myself a bit of a fail-safe. So I did a Certificate 3 of Early Education and Care, and I graduated with that from Year 12. And that gave me the equivalent of, I believe it was an OP 15. So I knew, because I'd set myself up, if I didn't make it in my other subjects, if I dropped, I already had that holding me there, which meant that I could get in. I could step up. And whilst it would be a bit of a longer pathway, I kept that fail-safe there just in case.
Back in the day, when I graduated, I did get the OP I wanted. And I actually started out studying crime and criminal justice. And then I worked for Telstra for 7 years. And then I had my son, who changed my life, and I decided that I wanted to make a difference. And so I started looking into universities where I could study nursing, and I selected ACU because I was actually impressed with the rich campus history. If you look into the history of the campus here, it's amazing. And within my first semester of walking around the campus, I actually bumped into quite a few males that were studying priesthood and stuff like that, and they're like, what are you in your little nursing outfit and stuff? And so just the vibe on campus, the history and the people you meet here is so enriching.
I didn't get the OP necessary. At the time when I was going in, I needed an OP 7, I think it was, for my degree. Mine wasn't that. But I went through the Community Achievers program, which is a program where if you've conducted other co-curricular activities outside of school that have taken up a significant amount of time, where you engage in the community and sort of do other things and give back, they would drop my requirements down to a 18, and I wrote a little letter about myself, what I did, why I think I deserved it or wanted it, and they gave it to me. And I got my offer for university early in August, the year before I went in.
Excellent. Great. Thank you for sharing. I guess this next question, Rebecca and Christy, is for you guys. How do you manage shift work with a young family or children?
So at work, I've just reached the 6-month mark, so I'm a new grad as well. So I got a graduate position in February. And with the hospital, after 6 months, once you've done a few assessments and your assignments and a couple of module books, they actually say you can go on to like 12-hour shifts. So I work 8-hour shifts at the moment. And I've actually been able to schedule that for a whole week that I'm block placement, working for that entire week as a shift work. And then the following week I have off. So with my son, I share custody with his dad. So his dad has him the week that I actually work. And then when I have him, I'm not working. I can do school pickups, school drop-offs. It's quite easy to manage your shifts once you get the hang of it.
So for me, I would not be able to easily do shift work if I didn't have the support of my partner. That's basically the bottom line. I must admit, I think it would be very, very difficult if you didn't have additional family supports around, or even the flexibility within your workplace. So that's actually amazing that they do that at Logan. So yeah.
Excellent. Yes, a question in the room.
So my question is, so all of you are clearly really passionate about what you're doing. My question would be, your colleagues who have been in there for a few more years, how many of them have... So as I said, you're all clearly very passionate about what you're doing. My question is, your colleagues that you're working with that have been there for a little bit longer, how many of them are still as passionate? How many have become jaded and sort of a little bit toxic to work with?
You're not asking for us to name names, are you? I guess, I mean, like with any workplace, you're going to have people who really, really are enthusiastic about their job and, care about what they do. And I would say that from where I work, the people who are passionate far outweigh the people that aren't. Yeah.
Absolutely. I work in quite a small group. There's just 4 of us nurses and a lot of GPs. And my senior nurses, they're probably the word I would use is a bit more realistic. Like, I get people coming in, I'm like, oh my goodness, look at this. And they're like, yeah. So it's a little bit more of, they've learned almost to hold their emotions back a little bit more. They're not necessarily jaded. They're just have learnt to almost protect their heart a little bit more against some of the things that you do sometimes see.
So the experience in ICU where I am is quite amazing. The nurses there have been there like 30, 40 years, I think some of them were saying, and they have no ideations of retiring anytime soon, which makes it quite hard for us as grads and that to get a job offer later. Got to wait for someone to but anyways. But in regards to jaded, I don't know about jaded, but maybe more harder. So yeah, just more, they don't as a new grad, you come in and you're like, hi, everything's so nice and I'm going to fix you. And they're like, just get straight down to business. Let's do this. We need to do it on time. So it's I don't know about jaded, but maybe harder.
From some of my mentors that I've seen, there's been a few that, like you've said, have become a bit more hardened over the years, and definitely going in for my paramedicine placements everything was exciting for me, no matter what it was, how minor it was. If it was a little cut, I still got very excited to see it. And they were quite patient with me. But yeah, they were quite good with accepting me for my enthusiasm. But I don't think I've seen anyone that's sort of jaded so far.
Sorry, yeah, a question from the audience.
So you briefly mentioned before about setting yourself apart to like whilst at university for a job, because it is a massive talent pool right now and the job supplies are in demand. What are some other ways to help set yourself apart to get that job in Queensland, hopefully?
I was just like about to go, well, right now. Anything you can add to your resume while you're at uni. So, societies. I was vice president of the Nursing Society on campus. Putting your hand up to help out at any of these events, you can put on your resume. Becoming guest speakers as current nursing students, things like that.
Absolutely, that sort of thing. Also, really big thing is, honestly, be very, very kind to the people that you meet on placement. Trust me, it looks really nice if a NUM of a ward has loved you. A NUM is a nurse unit manager. If they love you and they're like, yeah, I'll write you a reference. Trust me, that looks very nice. So make friends on your placement, don't burn bridges.
I think Ali kind of touched on a few things earlier before, and where you have within the midwifery, I guess, probably with nursing as well, but you have like cultural immersion type travels. But like for someone like me, that really wasn't an option just in terms of flexibility. But ACU do have lots and lots of opportunities where you can actually like give back to the community, just being involved, anything extra that you can put on your resume, even if it's just for like they have like bake sales and fundraisers and things like that. It sounds silly, but those things are the things that do set you apart for sure.
One great thing that ACU does to differentiate us from other graduates from other unis is we have that the community engagement hours. So we've got to do 40 hours of community engagement. Definitely put that on your resume. Definitely whereabouts you went. If you can do more hours, that would be fantastic. I was able to put on going to Zambia and the society. Just in any interview that you have, think of interesting things and interesting cases that you've come across that you probably wouldn't normally come across in an everyday placement, something that's a little bit different, things that can set your experience apart even.
And I'll also add to that. We have what are called student jobs on campus. So they may be, like Rowan here. So he's with our student ambassador program. So things like that, or helping out as a lab assistant. They also give you, I guess, opportunities to get to know your lecturers and tutors better as well. And they also may have opportunities. And if you're working closely with them, you're kind of front of mind for them as well. All right, I think we've got our final question in the room. And then for those online, we're going to say goodbye. But for those of you in the room, you will have the opportunity to speak with our alumni and current student after. So, would you like?
Mine's in line with being competitive for the job market. Do you think grades are just as important, more important, or less important than all those things you just talked about?
I would say less important. I had a GPA of 4.17 when I graduated, so here we are.
I think that's a tricky question to answer, not being on the interview panel. I think there's so many things that kind of contribute to, your employability. It's not just your grades. It's also the interview, how well you are prepared for that. And like realistically, whether or not you get an interview, so your resume as well. So at ACU, they have, what's it called? It's the Office of Student Success or something like that. So they have
Career services.
Yeah, career services that will actually go through and help you write your resume. And
Help you
Kennedy
prepare for
actually would,
interviews.
lots of, like, they'll actually, for us, prior to graduating, they had sessions where past students would actually come and say, like, these are the types of questions, these are the types of scenarios that have been asked on previous interview panels, so that you've at least got, like something in your back pocket. Yeah.
Sorry, also with our placement where we had a placement feedback after every shift. So you'd always, every shift, just talk to your preceptor and say, hey, can you fill in this feedback form online? And I just screenshot all of those, took them to my interview because, they're straight up about what you have to learn, where you're at, and everyone's all very honest, and it's open. It's good to get feedback yourself to help you continue learning on your placements, but if you take that to your interview, they can see exactly how you've progressed and how other people work with you if you're going to be a good fit for the hospital and work well together with other staff as well. So that really helped me.
Pretty much think that the ladies have said it all, but biggest thing is just make sure, especially at your interviews, you're friendly, you're warm, and you really give them the vibe that you want to be there and you want to do that job well, because that is the absolute main thing.
We'll wrap up shortly.
For my unit, I'd say that grades do matter. They definitely, unfortunately, to get your foot in the door in ICU and some specialties, you do need them to see that you are able to do well. So once you sort of I'd say you're looking at distinctions and high distinctions that you need to achieve, and then you'll get your foot in the door, and then you'll get that interview. Because I think for me, at Logan ICU, they only interviewed 7 people, and only 2 grad positions were offered. So unfortunately, I think that your grades do matter there.
At the moment in university, all of my tutors and lecturers are preaching good quality grades, high grades for paramedicine in particular, because of the competitive job market. It might not be the same for nursing, but they're definitely looking for a GPA of 5 and above for paramedicine, but at the same time they've said that it might not matter depending on what you've done.